I found my wife's smart watch under the couch cushions, and what I discovered on it made me realize that 15 years of marriage had been built on lies I never wanted to see. My name is Hector, I'm 43 years old, and I run a small import-export business in Santa Monica. The ocean breeze, the palm trees, the seemingly perfect California lifestyle. It all seemed like a dream when Annabelle and I bought our house here about 12 years ago. She works as a dispatcher for a logistics company, coordinating shipments and drivers. Our son Ethan just turned 13, and he's everything to me: smart, funny, with his mother's dark eyes and my stubborn streak. Annabelle always had stories about her past. 3 previous marriages, all ending because of infidelity, or so she claimed. They all cheated, Hector, she'd tell me during our early dating years, her voice trembling with what I thought was genuine pain. I can't stand betrayal. It's the one thing I absolutely cannot forgive. I believed her completely. I held her when she cried about her ex-husbands, promised I'd never be like them, and built my entire approach to our marriage around loyalty and transparency. We had a good life, or at least I thought we did. My business wasn't making us wealthy, but we were comfortable, solid middle class, with enough for family vacations and Ethan's activities. Annabelle seemed content with her dispatcher job, coming home with stories about difficult drivers or complicated routes. We'd have dinner together most nights, help Ethan with homework, watch movies on weekends. Normal, stable, safe. The fall season in Santa Monica is beautiful, still warm, but with that crisp edge to the evening air. October had just begun when I started noticing small changes. Nothing dramatic, just little things that didn't quite add up. Annabelle would shower as soon as she got home from work, which wasn't unusual, but there was an urgency to it that seemed new. She'd take her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom, when she used to leave it lying around casually. Then came the Tuesday that changed everything. Annabelle came home around 7:30, later than usual. She said there'd been a crisis at work, multiple drivers calling in sick, complete chaos. She looked flushed, energized in a way that didn't match the exhaustion she was describing. When she hugged me hello, I noticed something on her neck, a small bruise, reddish-purple, about the size of a quarter. "What happened there?" I asked, touching it gently. She flinched, then laughed. "Oh, that? I've been going to the gym during lunch breaks. Started doing some weight training with one of the other dispatchers. Guess I'm clumsier than I thought, dropped a weight on myself yesterday." I nodded, accepting the explanation even though something felt off. But over the next week, more bruises appeared. One on her shoulder, another on her inner arm. Each time the gym story, the weight training routine she was supposedly developing. The problem was, Annabelle had never been to a gym in the 15 years I'd known her. She'd always said she hated exercise, preferred walking on the beach or hiking when the mood struck her. The idea of her suddenly taking up weight training seemed completely out of character, but I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. It was Ethan who unknowingly gave me the first real clue. We were having breakfast one Saturday morning in mid-October, just the two of us. Annabelle was still asleep. "Mom seems happier lately," he said between bites of cereal. "She's always texting and smiling at her phone. Kids notice everything." I'd been so focused on my business and maintaining our household that I hadn't paid enough attention to the small details. But once Ethan said it, I couldn't unsee it. Annabelle was different. Not in the obvious ways. She wasn't dressing differently or wearing more makeup. But there was a lightness to her, a distraction, like part of her attention was always somewhere else. The smartwatch changed everything. It was a Thursday evening, late October. Annabelle had rushed out to meet friends from work for dinner. She'd been gone about 20 minutes when I sat down on the couch and felt something hard under the cushion. Her smartwatch. She must have taken it off to shower and forgotten it. I held it in my hand, the screen lighting up with a simple swipe. I'd never snooped before, never felt the need to. But those bruises, the gym lie, Ethan's observation, it all crashed together in my mind. My hands were shaking as I opened her messages. The first few conversations were normal. Coordination with coworkers about shift schedules. A group chat with some friends planning a birthday party. Then I saw a name that appeared over and over, Leon. Leon worked with her apparently. A fellow dispatcher. Their messages started professionally enough if I scrolled way back, shift swaps, coverage requests. But as I moved forward in time, everything changed. The messages became flirtatious, then explicit. My stomach turned as I read through weeks of conversations about secret meetings, stolen moments, careful planning to avoid getting caught. The most recent message was from earlier that day. "Dinner at our usual spot tonight?" I need to see you. Her response, yes. Told H I'm meeting work friends. Should have until 10. I sat there in our living room, surrounded by 15 years of shared life. Photos of Ethan on the walls, the coffee table we'd picked out together, the throw pillows Annabelle had insisted on buying last spring. Everything looked the same, but nothing was. I kept reading. The affair had been going on for at least 6 months, maybe longer. They'd been meeting at a romantic restaurant right on the beach, someplace in Santa Monica with ocean views and private booths. The messages revealed careful planning. Leon knew when I'd be traveling for business, when Ethan would be at his friend James's house, when they could steal an afternoon or evening together. What gutted me most wasn't just the betrayal itself. It was reading Leon's messages asking her about leaving me, about them building a life together. And Annabelle's responses were careful, non-committal. Let's just enjoy what we have, she'd write. I'm not ready to blow up my life yet. She was keeping her options open, playing both sides, making sure she had somewhere soft to land no matter what happened. I thought about her stories of previous husbands who'd cheated, the tears she'd shed, the righteous anger, and suddenly I understood. It had all been a lie, a preemptive strike. She was the one who cheated in those marriages. She'd just rewritten history to make herself the victim, to ensure I'd never suspect her of the same behavior. Even our son, our 13-year-old son, hadn't been enough to stop her. I took screenshots of everything on my phone, then carefully placed the smartwatch back under the couch cushion, exactly where I'd found it. Then I sat in the dark and planned. Annabelle came home around 10:15, smelling like wine and cologne that wasn't mine. She kissed my cheek, apologized for being late, said the girls had gotten carried away talking. I smiled and said it was fine, glad she'd had fun. She never suspected I knew anything. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I'd never wanted to be: calculating, strategic, cold. I consulted with a lawyer that my friend Philip recommended, someone discreet who specialized in complex divorce cases. I organized our financial records, documented everything I could find about Annabelle's affair. The smartwatch became my source of truth. I'd check it whenever she forgot it lying around, watching the evidence mount. The messages revealed more than just an affair. They showed Annabelle's manipulation of Leon, too. She told him I was emotionally abusive, that I controlled all the money, that she was trapped. None of it was true, but Leon believed her, saw himself as her rescuer. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't destroying my life. I also started paying closer attention to Annabelle's work schedule. Those late nights at the office she'd had sporadically over the past months, they corresponded perfectly with Leon's messages. The work emergency that had kept her away from Ethan's school play in September, she'd been at that beachside restaurant with Leon while our son performed on stage, looking for his mother in the audience. My business partner James noticed I wasn't myself. "You okay, man?" he asked one afternoon in early November as we reviewed inventory reports. "You seem distracted." "Just tired," I said. "A lot on my mind." He didn't push, which I appreciated. I wasn't ready to talk about it yet. I needed to have everything arranged first. The revenge I planned wasn't about money or public humiliation. It was about truth. Annabelle had built her entire identity around being a victim of infidelity, someone who valued loyalty above all else. I was going to take that away from her in the most devastating way possible. I knew Annabelle's mother, Laura, and her sister, Caitlin, believed every story she'd told about her previous marriages. They'd welcomed me into the family as the good one, the husband who would finally treat her right. They had no idea who she really was. On a Tuesday in mid-November, I invited them to our house for dinner. I told Annabelle it was a family gathering, something nice before the holidays got too busy. She was surprised but pleased. She loved presenting our perfect family to her mother and sister. That afternoon, while Annabelle was still at work, I set up everything. I'd downloaded all the messages from her smartwatch onto my laptop. I'd organized them chronologically, showing the progression from friendly coworker chats to something much darker. I'd also found their photos, selfies they'd taken together, saved in a cloud account I'd discovered she had under a different email address. Dinner started normally. I'd ordered takeout from a nice Italian place, set the table properly, even bought wine. Ethan was at his friend's house for a sleepover. I'd made sure he wouldn't be there for what was coming. We talked about ordinary things. Laura's garden, Caitlin's new job, my business's upcoming holiday rush. Annabelle was relaxed, laughing, playing the role of devoted wife and daughter. I watched her perform, this woman I'd spent 15 years with, and felt like I was seeing a stranger. After we finished eating, I excused myself and came back with my laptop. Before we have dessert, I said, there's something everyone needs to see. Annabel's face went white. She knew instantly that her world was about to collapse. I opened the laptop and turned it toward Laura and Caitlin. On the screen were the messages, the photos, the evidence of 6 months of lies. I didn't say anything at first, just let them read. Hector, what is this? Laura asked, confusion in her voice. That's your daughter's conversation with her co-worker Leon, I said calmly. They've been having an affair for the past 6 months. Meeting at restaurants while I'm working, while Ethan's at school. Planning their time together around our family schedule. Annabel stood up so fast her chair fell over. You went through my private messages? You had no right. Those bruises you said were from the gym? I continued, ignoring her outburst. There is no gym membership. You've never been to a gym. Those marks were from Leon. Caitlin was scrolling through the messages, her expression shifting from shock to disgust. Annabel, this is... How could you? You don't understand, Annabel said, her voice taking on that familiar trembling quality. Hector's been distant, cold. I was lonely. I made a mistake. A 6-month mistake? I asked. Hundreds of messages? Meeting him while our son waited for his mother at his school play. That detail hit Laura hard. She loved Ethan fiercely, and missing his performance had upset her at the time. You told us you had a work emergency that night. I did. Annabel stopped, realizing there was no believable lie left. Here's what I find most interesting, I said, and I pulled up older messages I'd found on a backup of her phone. These are from 4 years ago. Different name, someone called Derek. Same pattern, co-worker, secret meetings, lies about where she was. Annabel's face went from white to gray. She deleted those messages long ago, thought they were gone forever. She didn't know I'd discovered the backup. And before that, I continued, there were others. I've spent the past 2 weeks digging through everything. Annabel's been cheating throughout our entire marriage. Those stories about her ex-husbands being unfaithful. I contacted 2 of them. Want to know what they said? Silence. Absolute silence. They caught her cheating. Every single one of them. She left them before they could divorce her, then rewrote history to make herself the victim. Laura was crying now. Caitlin had her arm around their mother, both of them staring at Annabel with a mixture of horror and heartbreak. You let us blame them, Laura whispered. We cut off Tom completely, because you said he'd destroyed you with his affair. He sent me a Christmas card last year, and I threw it away without reading it because I thought he'd broken your heart. Mom, please. Annabel reached for her mother, but Laura stepped back. Don't touch me. I don't even know who you are. That's when Annabel changed tactics. The tears stopped. Her expression hardened. You're all so perfect, aren't you? None of you know what it's like to be bored, to feel trapped. Hector and his business, always working, never paying attention to me. Ethan with his constant needs. I deserve to be happy too. Then you should have left, I said quietly. You should have been honest and left. Instead, you lied. To me, to Ethan, to your family. You made yourself the martyr while destroying everyone who trusted you. I closed the laptop. I've filed for divorce. My lawyer will be contacting you tomorrow. I've documented everything, the affair, the lies, the pattern of infidelity. In California, that affects custody and asset division, especially when one party has been deceptive about finances and has endangered the welfare of a minor by her actions. You can't take Ethan from me, Annabel said, panic replacing the hardness. I'm not taking him from you, but he deserves to know the truth about why his family is breaking apart. Not the sanitized version, not the story where I'm the bad guy. The real truth. Caitlin stood up. Come on, Mom. We should go. They left without saying goodbye to Annabel. I heard her calling after them, heard the desperation in her voice, but they didn't turn back. After they were gone, Annabel and I stood in our dining room, surrounded by the ruins of dinner and our marriage. What about Leon? I asked. Does he know I found out? She shook her head. Call him. Tell him it's over. Tell him I know everything, and that if he contacts you again, I'll make sure his employer knows he's been conducting an affair on company time, using company resources. Hector, do it now. On speaker. Her hands shook as she dialed. Leon answered on the second ring, his voice warm and intimate. Hey beautiful, missing you already. Leon, we need to stop this. My husband knows. Everything. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then what? How? It doesn't matter how. It's over. Don't call me, don't text me, don't try to contact me at work. It's done. But you said you were going to leave him. You said. I know what I said. I was wrong. Goodbye, Leon. She hung up before he could respond. Happy now? She asked me, and there was real venom in her voice. No, I said honestly. I'm not happy. I'm devastated. But I'm also free. The next few weeks were brutal. Annabelle moved in with a friend temporarily, someone named Patricia who worked at her company and didn't know the full story yet. Ethan stayed with me in the house. I told him a simplified version of what had happened, that his mother and I were getting divorced because she'd broken our trust, that it wasn't his fault, that we both still loved him. He was angry with her, which broke my heart in a different way. 13 is such a difficult age anyway, and now he was processing the fact that his mother had betrayed our family. He refused to see her for the first 2 weeks, then only agreed to short supervised visits. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I expected. My lawyer, recommended by Philip, was excellent. The evidence of Annabelle's affair and her pattern of deception worked heavily in my favor. California is a no-fault divorce state, but judges still consider behavior when determining custody and asset division. Leon apparently tried to contact Annabelle several times after that phone call. She blocked his number, but he showed up at her temporary apartment once. Patricia, who by then knew the whole story, threatened to call the police. He left and didn't come back. Whatever fantasy he'd built about their relationship together died when confronted with reality. The most satisfying moment came during a mediation session in December. Annabelle's lawyer tried to paint her as a devoted mother who'd made one mistake. My lawyer pulled out the timeline, 4 different affairs over 15 years, including one while she was pregnant with Ethan. The mediator's expression shifted dramatically. Mrs. Parker, the mediator said, I'm recommending primary custody go to Mr. Parker with structured visitation for you. Additionally, given the deception regarding marital assets and the affair, I'm recommending a 60-40 split of community property in Mr. Parker's favor. Annabelle started to argue, but her lawyer put a hand on her arm and shook his head. It was the best deal she was going to get. The house stayed with me. The savings accounts were divided according to the mediator's recommendation. Annabelle got her car and her personal possessions. Most importantly, Ethan would live with me, with Annabelle getting every other weekend and 1 evening per week once he was ready for unsupervised visits. Christmas was hard. Ethan spent Christmas Eve with me and Christmas morning with Annabelle at Patricia's apartment. He came back subdued, saying it had been weird, and that she'd cried a lot. I didn't press for details. In January, the divorce was finalized. 15 years of marriage ended with a judge's signature and the division of assets that included everything from furniture to Ethan's baby photos. I ran into Laura at a grocery store in mid-January. She looked older, tired. We talked for a few minutes. She asked about Ethan, told me she still couldn't believe what had happened. She'd reconnected with 2 of Annabelle's ex-husbands, apologized for believing the lies. They'd been gracious about it, understanding that they'd all been victims of the same manipulation. I should have seen it, Laura said. Looking back, there were signs. But she's my daughter. I wanted to believe her. We all did, I said. Annabelle's life fell apart in ways I hadn't even orchestrated. Caitlin stopped speaking to her entirely. Laura maintained minimal contact, mostly for appearance's sake, but the warmth was gone. Patricia eventually asked her to leave the apartment after Annabelle tried to manipulate her the same way she'd manipulated everyone else, painting herself as the victim, claiming I'd been controlling and abusive. But Patricia had seen the evidence, had been there for the phone call with Leon. She didn't buy it. Leon lost his job at the logistics company. Not because of the affair directly, but because once people knew about it, they started looking more closely at his work. Turned out he'd been falsifying delivery logs to cover for his meetings with Annabelle, a serious violation that could have cost the company significant money. He was fired in December and moved to San Diego to start over. Annabelle tried to reconnect with him once after that, from what I heard through mutual acquaintances. She drove to San Diego, showed up at his new apartment. He wouldn't even let her in. Whatever feelings he'd had for her had died when he realized she was never going to leave me, that he'd been a toy she was playing with rather than a person she actually cared about. By February, Annabelle was living in a small apartment in a less expensive part of Santa Monica, working the same dispatcher job but isolated from most of her former friends. Her reputation at work was damaged beyond repair, even though she'd kept her job. People talked. People knew. She still saw Ethan according to the custody schedule, but their relationship was strained. He was old enough to understand what she'd done, old enough to feel betrayed not just for me but for himself. She'd chosen her affairs over family dinners, over his school events, over being present in his life. That's not something that heals quickly, if it ever does. As for me, I threw myself into my business and into being a good father. James and Philip were incredible supports, helping me navigate single parenthood and the emotional aftermath of everything. My business actually grew. Funny how having clarity and focus can improve every aspect of your life. The truth is, discovering Annabelle's betrayal destroyed me in ways I'm still processing. But it also freed me. I'd spent 15 years trying to be the perfect husband to a woman who'd never valued loyalty to begin with, who'd seen my devotion as weakness rather than strength. I'd contorted myself trying to make sure she had no reason to do what her ex-husbands supposedly did, never realizing that the ex-husbands weren't the villains in her story. Now I'm building a new life. One based on truth instead of carefully maintained illusions. One where Ethan can see what healthy relationships look like, what honesty and integrity actually mean. One where I'm not constantly walking on eggshells, wondering what I'm doing wrong, trying to prevent something that was inevitable anyway. Annabelle lost everything: her marriage, her relationship with her son, her family's trust, her reputation, even her affair partner. Not because I destroyed her, but because the truth finally caught up with someone who'd been running from it for decades. The woman who couldn't stand betrayal turned out to be the ultimate betrayer, and once that mask came off, there was nothing left but the reality she'd created. I still see her sometimes, picking up Ethan for her weekends. We're civil, polite even. But there's nothing there anymore. No anger, no pain, no lingering attachment. Just the sad recognition that I spent 15 years married to someone I never really knew. Ethan's doing better. He's starting to rebuild a relationship with his mother, though it will never be what it was. He's old enough to set boundaries now, to recognize manipulation when he sees it. That's a gift I never intended to give him, but maybe it will serve him well in life. As for me, I'm not looking for another relationship. Not yet, maybe not for a long time. I'm learning who I am outside of being Annabelle's husband, outside of trying to live up to impossible standards set by a woman who never intended to keep her own promises. I'm learning that peace is worth more than passion, that honesty is worth more than excitement, that sometimes the life you build after everything falls apart is better than the life you thought you wanted. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.